What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Sheehan Show with me, Sean Sheehan, here on Sherdog.com. And what a weekend of mixed martial arts we have ahead of us. We have Bellator, we have One Championship, and we have UFC. This weekend, there was no UFC last weekend. It was time for the chasing back to call up. It was a great weekend for them. Not so much a great weekend for the bets. We'll talk about that in a second, but it's really a jam-packed time at the moment. It feels like that chasing back that I mentioned took advantage of the UFC being off and decided to put on a few shows around this time, and I think it's worked out pretty well for them. But with that said, we have lots of shows to look at, lots of fighters to look at, and lots of stuff to talk about. So we have cards next week too. Europe really takes hold next week. I'm sure there's a UFC. I haven't even looked at it yet. There's probably a pay-per-view or something, but what I have looked at is Cage Warriors Dublin, and there's a KSW show next week. So next week's betting show, we will have a chat on them, and I'm sure I'll have a couple of bets for those shows then as well, and I will have previews as well for them. Right, before we get to this week's bets, let's review last week's bets. And it was a weird one. Almost by the time the betting show come out, most of the fights had been written off. And I apologize to the people who watched the betting show after the fights have been cancelled. There's nothing you can do really. I would love to get the betting show out Monday morning at 8 a.m. But the bets and the lines don't come out until Wednesday at the earliest. And all the lines don't come out till Thursday, Friday. And it's just, if you're releasing a video and you want people to watch it, and people want to watch it, you have to give them a couple of days. It's no good releasing a video Friday night. Some of the fights on Friday and then the fights are on Saturday. It's tough. So I hope people understand it from my point of view. I want to get it out so people can watch it. And maybe sometimes I have to take the odds a little bit earlier, or I take the fights a little bit earlier and then the fights get cancelled because of weight misses and all of that. Look, if anyone has created MMA content, they probably know that issue. I remember I used to write previews years ago for all the UFC cards. I did it for maybe 4 or 5 years, every single one, and I like to be prepared. So I used to write them maybe, the Friday before the card or the Saturday before the card, and the card would come around and there'd be 5 fights off it. I'd be rewriting. I was like, why do I do this? let me just write it on the Wednesday before the card, and it'd make a lot more sense. But that's the world of MMA we live in, and no, I'm not making any excuses here or anything, but it kind of did ruin last week's betting show. It has, honestly, that really hasn't happened before. I don't think a betting show like last week was kind of ruined by fights being changed, but it definitely was last week. So let me just explain it quickly for you. The Valentina Scatizzi bet that I gave you, that fight didn't even happen, so that's marked off. The Franz Malambo fight, I gave you Franz Malambo. The fight that I gave you didn't happen, but he did fight. I wrote in the comment section below that I'm sticking with that bet. I went with it, and he did win. So, will we take it, will we not take it? I don't think it makes much of a difference. I'm putting it into my record. If you don't agree with that, feel free to take it off my record. But and the other bet I gave you, Alexander Shivas from PFL, that fight also didn't happen. He didn't fight at all. So 3 of the bets gone there. The Ham fight, I gave you Ham, she lost. Well, that was a fair bet. I thought that fight was going to get cancelled as well because Stamp missed weight at the start, but she came and she made weight, and then the Elliott FLIER didn't happen either. So we are 1 from 2 from last week. The FLIER didn't hit. So overall, we're 66 from 136, and we're 13 from 35 overall in the FLIERs. So 66 out of 136, 13 from 35, which, I'm relatively happy with, because if you listen to this betting show, I'm not too bothered about the record. I'm only putting the record up there so people can see it, so it's transparent or whatever, but I'm more bothered about getting some good bets out there, and it's more a weekly one than a yearly one. But I do like the 13 flyers, 13 flyers hitting in the space of 10 months. I'll take that. I'll absolutely take that. My aim at the start of the year was 1 a month. My aim at the start of the year was 50%, a little bit below that in terms of the 50%, but 13 out of 10 for 10 months, I'll take that any time. I guarantee it won't be that good next year, so we'll take it while we can get it. Right, I have bets from all the promotions for this week. So let's get straight into them. And actually, like, as I read these bets, as I finalized them, I was like, this is going to be a short enough betting show because they all feel like very straightforward bets in my mind. Like, some bets, I have to give you a 20-minute explanation and go through it all, but I think all of these, apart from maybe one, are straightforward enough, right? So let's get into it. It'll take us as long as it takes us. The first bet I'm going for is from the UFC, and I'm going for Joseph Pyfer, as he's written here on Sherdog, to knock out Abdul Razak Alhassan, and that price is minus 145. The betting on the fight straight up is minus 450 for Pyfer, plus 335 for Alhassan. The fight to go to decision is plus 400, minus 650 that it doesn't go to a decision. So looking at both of those prices, I feel like the minus 145 for Pyfer to win, who is the big favourite, to win by KO. When you look at his record, 8 of his 11 wins have been by KO, only 2 submissions. You know, most of his fights in 73% in via KO. You know, I think that's a pretty good bet at minus 145. You look at Alhassan. Okay, he's 5 losses, only 1 by knockout, but he has been knocked out. And, you know, he got knocked out by Kalen Williams back in 2020. So it's, you know, it's not as if it's impossible or anything like that. Now, the reason I'm going for this is basically that. But sometimes you look at a guy like Joe Pyfer, and he's on such a great run at the moment, like 4 wins in a row, 4 knockouts. You know, the only thing kind of stopping him for having 5 or 6 in a row is an elbow injury in the Dana White Contender Series. But I like seeing what he did to Gerald Marshart, who's a good test. You know, he's not the best fighter in the world, but he's a good test for a guy like this. Being Alan Amadovsky, who's, you know, maybe not as good a test as Gerald Marshart. I think he was ready for kind of a step up. And I think when you put him in there against a guy like Alhassan, there is 2 things you want to achieve if you're the UFC, right? You want to push Pyfer, who you believe is a good fighter, to the next level, as any promotion should. I don't fault them at all for that. Actually, I don't fault them for any of this, right? And you also want to achieve a very fun fight, which I do think this will be. Now, at the other side of it, maybe we look up the odds for this as well. I think there is a chance that Alhassan catches him and knocks him out. That's plus 450. Now, I was actually thinking of giving Pyfer as one bet and giving this as the flyer. And, you know, maybe we'll see till I get to the flyer. Maybe I'll change my flyer because, you know, it could happen. It could happen. Let's just see what the price is, the fight in by knockout. I don't know if maybe the odds for that aren't out yet. I told you about the fight to win inside the distance, but yeah, I don't think the odds for that are out yet. But the fight to end via knockout in round 1 with either to win is minus 115. I think that's, you know, pretty likely, I would say. So that's, you know, a similar enough price. It's a better price, but than Pyfer just to win by knockout, but Pyfer is rounds 2 and 3 as well. I just do think what the second thing the UFC want, which I mentioned, is going to happen here. I think it's going to be a fun fight. I think the 2 of these lads are going to go hell for leather. They're going to go at it. Alhassan, that's the way he fights. You know, that's the way he fights. I see his nickname here is Judo Thunder. You know, we see a bit of that from him. You know, he had that unbelievable knockout over Charlie Ward a few years ago with his big judo throw to the ground, and he has that madness in him. You know, he in terms of he can knock a guy out like that. So it's not an easy fight at all for Pyfer. I do think though, and there's a couple of fights like this on my card today, and I spoke about it last week with the Franz Manamba fight as well, that unfortunately didn't happen, although it did happen in his fight regardless. Is that sometimes when you get into a fight, when there's 2 power punchers, and I think this will be the case in the One Championship main event as well, and I said it on my preview, that I think the classier fighter, the more fundamental based fighter will win. I think they will avoid the power better, and land their shots better, even if they're less powerful. Like a less powerful shot that lands is more effective than a massively powerful shot that doesn't land. Now, that might seem very obvious, but in a fight where it's a pure firefight like that, and maybe you've both landed a big shot, the guy sometimes who can land that next shot is the one who will win the fight. You know, one guy whiffs a big shot, lands it, he whiffs another one, misses, whiffs another one, misses. The other guy whiffs a shot and lands it, and then he jabs you right hand, and you're gone. And I think that is the difference between Pyfer and Alhassan for me. And that's the reason I'm going for it. That's straight up the reason I'm going for this bet. I think he is a little bit more classy. I think someone will get knocked out, and I think at minus 145 to get the knockout, I think that's a great price, to be honest, for Joe Pyfer there. Right, the next bet I am going from here is from Bellator. And we'll talk about Bellator. Well, let's do it now altogether. The Bellator card is a very, very good card. Better than the UFC card, I would say, without a shadow of a doubt. But there's really very little scope for betting in the title fights. The prices plus 700 for Primus, Nurmagomedov. Some places he's up as far as minus 2,400. Zingano around the around the plus 400. Cyborg around the minus 600-ish. And then we have Ilya. See, this is an interesting one. Plus 200, minus 275 for Carmouche. Honestly, I don't like any of those prices. The favourites are too big, and I do think they'll win. I have a sneak for all three of the underdogs to like possibly cause an upset, while almost certainly not. But I have enough doubt to not bet on any of the favourites, and I'm not giving you a minus 2,000 bet here. I would rather my record be like, 1 out of 100 than give you those bets. I just won't do it. So there's not really left to do. Like I was looking at some of the props. They're not all up yet. The props aren't great. I was looking at the treble. Let's just see what the price in the treble is. Obviously, the Bader fight fell out again. If I'd recorded a little bit earlier, we'd probably be talking about the Bader fight right now. So let's look at the treble. That is minus 140. Now that's not a bad bet. Or Nurmagomedov, Cyborg, and Carmouche the treble minus 140. See, I like that, but then I think, could Carmouche lose? Like, I think that's a very interesting fight, the Carmouche fight. If I was forced to pick one money line bet out of all of that, I think I'd probably pick Ilya at plus 200, to be honest. I just think Liz has been fighting an awful lot. No. She has done really well to win her fights recently against people she probably shouldn't be winning fights against. And that might sound like, oh, Jesus, Sean, you're talking down. Liz. That's actually a massive compliment. Imagine you go out, you're a sports star, and you win games like you shouldn't win. That's a sign of a really, really good fighter, right? But it also, I think Ilya is more on her wavelength than she is the other fighters. Like Juliana Velasquez, Ilya, she beat, and she got beaten by Carmouche, right? And that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense in my mind. It just does. I feel like she should have beaten both of them, but she didn't, right? And thus we have this sort of price. But I think McFarlane and Carmouche are closer than Velasquez is to either of the two of them, which is a mad thing to say. I 100% acknowledge that's a mad thing to say. I have no problem with it. But I feel like this is going to be an even enough fight. I feel like they're going to kind of dance around each other and pick each other off a little bit. Like Carmouche needs the big takedown. She needs the big submission. If she doesn't get it, I think it's going to be a very even fight. Now, I actually think she will get it, right? So I think she'll win. But that minus 275 for that, I'm not sure about that. It could easily be 5 rounds, very close, and Ilya could win. So that would be the bet if I was to go there. Now, back to my second bet. that was a long way around. Okay, bet number 2. I'm going for Maciej Rozanski at plus 163. And he is fighting Dawson Yagshimuradov. And what a pronunciation there. Like, I deserve... If you don't give a thumbs up and a subscribe for that, I was going to try to say it again, but once was enough. I'll back out. This is an interesting fight, and I'll tell you why. Maciej is a guy I have watched a good bit of over the years. He fought Will Fleury outside of Bellator in 2020. Then he got into Bellator, fought Lee Chadwick, and then he fought Carl Moore. So he fought two Irish guys, and he fought on the big MVP versus Storley card as well. And this guy is a really, really, really good fighter. I spoke to Will Fleury about him, and he's like, yeah, that guy is, he's as good as he looks, but he's also a guy that many people don't really know. He's had 2 fights in Bellator. He's gone 1-1. But lost to Carl Moore, who's a top fighter and, an underrated fighter as well. I think Carl is very, very good. And I think an awful lot of Carl, sometimes we talk about all the Irish MMA fighters and we some forget Carl Moore at times. He might be the leading one at the moment. Like, I think he should be the next in line for the light heavyweight title, to be honest. And it was a very close fight between him and Rozanski last time out. He beat Will Fleury, as I mentioned. He was on a 4-fight win streak before that. He is a very good technical fighter. He can strike. He can take you down. He's a load of submissions. Maybe not the biggest knockout artist in the world, but he absolutely can hit. And he's been around for a long time too. Like, he's fought the likes of Nurmagomedov and beaten him years ago. He's fought Jack Hermanson years ago. And then, the likes of Will Fleury, the likes of Chadwick, the likes of more recently as well. And I just think sometimes we see a guy and we don't really know that much of him, and he's against a guy in Yagshimuradov who's fought Anglitskas, he's fought Carvalho, he's fought Corey Anderson, he's fought Albrechtsen. We just know him. I'm like, oh yeah, well, the guy we know is probably going to win. I think the guy I know is going to win. And I know both of them, okay? But I think Rozanski is going to win. Like, I think the Albrechtsen fight, like, Yagshimuradov lost Albrechtsen. Carl Moore beat Albrechtsen. And Rozanski and Carl Moore had a very, very close fight, right? But obviously he did beat him as well. If there's a bit of MMA out there, like, they're not too far apart, all decisions and all of them. I just think what Yagshimuradov is really good at, right, is he's good on the ground, he'll hit you, but I think his takedown defense itself isn't amazing. We saw that especially in the Corey Anderson fight. Like, coming into the Corey Anderson fight, I was like, okay, I think he's a really good chance actually here. I think a lot of people don't know him. He's a little bit like Rozanski. And I don't know if I picked him or not, but I was close to it. And I think it's the same with the other way around here, but I think he's been exposed a little bit in terms of that takedown events. If Rozanski goes in there, I think he can work with him on the feet. I really do, as long as he doesn't catch a big one. And then I think he can take him down. Will he get the submission? Maybe. I could see that happening. He's been finished 5 times out of 7 in 7 losses in his career, submitted 3 times. I think that's the way it'll go. I really fancy Rozanski in this. I think it's a type of fight where you see the price on it, and his next fight, he will not be a price like this against a contestant like this. And I love it. Plus 163. I think it's a great bet. Maciej, Rozanski. Right. 1 bet from the UFC, 1 bet from Bellator. Let's move across and talk about our bets from one championship. First bet I'm going for Echo Roni Saputra to beat Yong, and he is minus 110 in his bets, in his fight over there. I spoke about this in preview. If you haven't seen it, I think it's a very, very interesting fight, but I do think there is a big advantage here for Echo Roni. I think he is a very good striker, but I think he's a much better grappler. Yong, he's had 4 losses. He's lost 1 by submission. He's never won by submission. 6 knockouts out of his 11, which, for the smaller guys is pretty good. But Echo Roni has a great finishing record as well. 7 wins, 5 submissions, 2 via knockout. And coming off of that loss after against Danny Kinyad last time out in the decision, I think Echo Ronnie was, what was he? 7 fights in a row, all first round finishes. And he was one of the big up and coming stars coming through. I think this is the kind of the matchmaking that will bring him back to that. I think it's good matchmaking. I think this betting line is way, way, way too close. Yong is -122. I think it's way too close. And I think like that line isn't long out, so I think that could change. So if you're listening to this early, I would get in on that. I just think Echo Ronnie's going to be a little bit too fast for him. As I said, you can listen to my whole preview on the One Championship preview show, but I do think the wrestling, the takedowns, the jiu-jitsu is going to be too much. I do think he's going to take him down early, and I do think he's going to submit him early as well. And that -110 price is really, really, really good. So Echo Ronnie Saputra, the first bet from One Championship. Second bet from One Championship, and my fourth bet of the week, is Ilya Freymanov. Again, this price is a little bit smaller, -213, but I think that is a fantastic price, if I'm being honest. I think Freymanov is a very, very good fighter, a top fighter. Now, Thanh is a very good fighter as well, and against anyone else, like almost literally anyone else, apart from maybe Thanh, who's out injured at the moment, in One Championship, I'd be picking him to win. But Freymanov has just been unbelievable. Like, he has been unbelievable. He beat Shinny last time out. He beat Martin Wayne. And like watching a lot of his fights over in Russia and things like that, before he came into One Championship, he's only had those 2 fights in One Championship, 2 first round finishes. I was like, this guy is legit. He's everything you expect. Good striker, good wrestler, good on the ground and everything like that. I just think, so a guy like Thanh, and again, please watch my preview show, but he's a very kind of wild karate, taekwondo, switch stance type of fighter, which will pose somewhat of it'll pose a lot of a threat, but it'll pose somewhat of a challenge for Freymanov. But Freymanov has met a lot of fighters like that. Maybe not as many as good as Thanh, but I just think he imposes his will so well in fights with that jab, with the constant pace, with his ability to kind of switch stances to meet you as well, although he won't do it as much maybe as most people will. But he can take you down. He can back you up. He can adjust things if they need adjusted in fights. And that is really the sign of a top fighter. I would be surprised, I think, if Thanh landed that big shot, and I'd also be surprised if Thanh won the decision. So with those two things said, you have to favour Freymanov there. Like, you look at his record, he's lost twice. He's never been knocked out in 14 fights, one by submission and one by decision. Like, that first one was in his second fight back in 2014. He lost in 2021 as well. Fair and square, absolutely. But I think it's such a good fight. It's going to be a really, really high class fight. But I do think, I said the word classy earlier, I do think Freymanov is the slightly more classy fighter, and I think that's what will see him through in this one. While we're here, let's look at the rest of the One Championship odds, and then I will give you my FLIER, and then we look at some of the UFC odds as well. So that fight, Thanh is plus 154 in that, minus 213 for Freymanov. Joshua Pasio, a big underdog here, plus 478. Mansour Malshev is minus 909. I think that's just about right, to be honest. I think Mansour is going to win that fight. I was very tempted to go for Zhang Liping, minus 106 against Timothy Natsiuk, minus 102. The fight last week kind of put me off a little bit, because when when you see the veterans stand up and win the way Edward Fylong did last week, you're kind of saying for Timothy Natsiuk, and could you do the same sort of thing? Now, Timothy he's only 33 years of age, and I think his opponent, I think Zhang is similar enough, and he's more fights and everything like that. He's 33 as well, but it just feels like he's been around for a long time. But I do like Zhang in that one. That's not one of my bets of the week, but it was very close to being one of my bets of the week. Echo Roni fight -110. Yong is the favourite -122. Very surprised on that. And then a fight that was added pretty late, I believe. Tetsuya at -385. Fighting Jin Tae-ho at +266 over there on that one. Right. The flyer of the week. Over in the UFC. Over in the main event. I'm going for Grant Dawson to win via TKO KO. This price has switched. When I looked at it yesterday, it was +475. It's +500 now. I'm going to take +500. It might roll back again. But that's the bet I'm going for. Now, I'm going for this bet. And I've taken this bet many times in a similar sort of way. And people probably know what I'm going to say now. I'm backing the wrestler who gets lots of submissions to not submit the guy and finish him instead. Like, okay, we'll ignore what I just said there for a second, right? Bobby Green has had 46 fights, if I'm not mistaken. He's only been submitted twice in 46 fights. So that's not an awful lot of submissions. Let's see. We'll scroll down here, seeing the last time he was submitted. It's a long time ago. I'll tell you what. It's David Mitchell in 2009. He was submitted twice in 2009. He hasn't been submitted in 14 years since. Now, there you go, right? I do think Grant Dawson will take him down over and over and over again. Bobby Green has good takedown defense, but Grant Dawson is fantastic. Like, I think it was, I gave him a shout out for Ocelot MMA, I believe. They had a trade up with all of Grant Dawson's fights and all of his submissions. And I think it was John Anik mentioned it last time on commentary, about how Grant Dawson had like the record. I'm completely pulling this out of the top of my head, but he had a record for like the most consecutive fights with takedowns in a row or something like that. He like 7 fights in a row where he take. It was something like that anyway. So I do think he will take him down. Okay, he's won 65% of his wins by submission. He's only 4 knockouts. But what I think is going to happen here is he's going to take him down, and Bobby Green is going to fight and fight and fight. And it's literally going to take him to get the back, land a load of shots, get the mount. Bobby Green's going to move from that back, move to the mount, and he's going to pummel him. He's going to go for the choke. He's going to defend it. He's going to have to put a 10-7 amount of shots on him to finish him. And that's the way I see it going. Now, look, absolutely, he could get the submission. He could push it in and get that, push in the hand underneath the chin and get the finish like that. But you know what? This is a flyer. We all know that. We all know what flyers are all about. And I like it that way. Let's see the submission bet. Dawson to win by submission is +120. Look, if I was given a straight up bet, maybe I would give that. But I like this. I like the takedown into the TKO KO bet. I like that bet. I used to love it for Jacare back in the day, and I think Dawson is a similar sort of fighter, and I think Green is a sort of fighter that will almost make you do that. So, the flyer for the week, +500, Grant Dawson to get the TKO KO over Bobby Green. I don't expect him, now maybe I'm wrong, but I don't expect him to get the big knockout on the feet or anything like that. I hope he does, if you've bet on it, and I hope you will as well. And I know you will hope he will. But yeah, I think it's going to be a takedown and a finish on the ground. Right, let's look at some of the other UFC prices. Look, I don't think it was the greatest slate for UFC. There was a few bets I liked, to be honest, but not a whole lot of them. The 294 card that's coming up, I think a lot of people are kind of looking at that and saying, okay, that's the card I want to look at. That's the card I want to concentrate on. But it doesn't always necessarily work out that way. But look, these things happen at MMA, I suppose. But Abdul, Razak, Alhassan, and Pyfer, as I mentioned, +335, -450 for favorite Pyfer. Morono Buckley was a fight I was looking at. I like Morono there. plus 135, minus 165 for Buckley. The Morona to win by decision is one I looked at as well, plus 320. Buckley to win by decision, plus 500. I think both of these guys are tough. I think it could go to decision. Fight goes to a decision itself is plus 172. I like that. Dober Glenn, I do like Dober in that one. He's a big favourite, minus 426. I'm going for Hernandez as well as the underdog here. Some places up as far as plus 122 against Bill Algeo. I do like Bill Algeo, but I'm going for Hernandez in that one. Algeo minus 130 favourite. Linzen and Kutilaba. That fight in and knockout is probably a good bet. Linz is plus 300 to get the knockout. Kutilaba is the type of guy, and I said this the last time, and I believe I was right. I bet on him to win by knockout the last time, and I was like, the next time betting him to lose by knockout. So Linz plus 300 to win by knockout is the bet there. Belbita and Kovalkiewicz is a very closely bet fight. Kovalkiewicz minus 160 plus 130 for Belbita. Although, is that fight off? I think that fight might actually be off. So never mind. Aldrich and De La Rosa very close as well. I do like De La Rosa there, although I have a lot of time for Aldrich. Minus 130 I think is a good price there for De La Rosa. So that's kind of the top and the bottom of a lot of the bets here from Saturday night. A few from Bellator as well, actually, that we didn't mention. One bet I really like is Henry Corrales and Kai Kamaka. I like Kai Kamaka, honestly. Minus 138 there. There's one up as far as minus 170. Maybe I wouldn't be going at it at that, but if it's down at minus 138, minus 135, maybe I would have a look at it. I think that's going to be a smashing fight. A bet as well that I had on my slate, but I replaced it. Slim Trabelsi. This is a fantastic price. Minus 175 for Trabelsi. I think he'll take care of Devion Franklin. Honestly, like, thinking back, I probably should have put that as one of my bets for the week. I think I really love that bet. I think he's good. I was kind of going between him and Rozanski, but I gave the better price on Rozanski. So there you go. Neil and Cotton. Neil's a favourite, minus 235 plus 170 for Cotton. And a big fight as well. We talked about the main event fights. Liam McCourt and Sarah McMahon is a massive fight. If Bellator continue and all of that, could be the number one contender fight. I'm a little bit surprised it's as close as it is here. Minus 170 for Sarah McMahon, plus 145 for Liam McCourt. Some places have it further apart, minus 225 for Sarah McMahon. That's about what I was expecting, to be honest. I think Leah has a chance, but it's a very, very tough fight there. But I think, Leah's getting a lot more respect from the bettors these days, I think, and that shows in that price as well, I think. But very interesting fight all around. All right, everyone, let me recap my bets. Pyfer by a knockout, minus 145. Magic Rozanski, plus 163. Echo Roni over one championship, minus 110. Ilya Freymanov as well, minus 213. And Dawson gets the knockout at plus 500 in the UFC main event. All right, everyone, bet responsibly. Don't go too mad this weekend. My name is Sheehan for Sherdog.com, and I'll see you all next time.